Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition, episode number 48 of Coffee Time with Byron. I'm your host, Byron. Alongside me via Zoom is former Major Leaguer Bobby Witt Sr., I might add, whose kid is now playing professionally for the Kansas City Royals. Man, I gotta start out there. What's it like having a second generation star in the majors? Did you know from the start he wanted to do what you did growing up, what you did professionally?
I think that he always had a passion to play baseball, and he ended up playing a little football right around sixth through his freshman year in high school. So he enjoyed that as well. But baseball, you could always see that was going to be the game that he was going to gravitate to.
That's awesome to see, and I know you were there from the start. I mean, I'm sure you had to see most of his games growing up. Even though I know you retired, I think it was in 01 after you won that World Series with the Diamondbacks. How were you for his games? Were you able to make much of his games, or did it interfere with your schedule playing wise?
Well, he was actually born in 2000, you said my last year was 01 with the Diamondbacks.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So when so as he grew up, I was able to be around a lot more. I have 3 girls that are older than him, and it was very different time traveling and being around and all that. So my wife did a really good job with that. I was very fortunate to be around when he started first playing, from when he was 4 or 5 all the way through high school, which was great.
That's awesome. And now you get to see him playing professionally, just like you did. I mean, how awesome is that?
It's great. Yeah, it's been a blast. I've been able to go up to Omaha. I've been able to go up to Arkansas and see him. I'm about 30 miles from Frisco here in this, and they have a AA team near the Rangers, so I was able to see him there, as well as in San Antonio. So it's been great. It's been great being able to go out there and see him. And with the MILB app, I've been able to watch pretty much most of his games throughout the year.
Were you there when he got drafted? Because I know the draft is in the New York studios of MLB. Were you there with him in person during the draft process?
Well, what we did is we had it at the house. We just ended up in here. He was invited to go to New York, but he chose not to, just so he could be around his family and friends. And there was a lot of coaches that he had that he wanted to make sure that they were part of that day. And it was a really special day, and it was a lot of excitement for our entire family.
There you go. Now let's get into it with your career. You made your debut in '86 for the Texas Rangers. What do you remember about that experience? Did you have goosebumps, or were you prepared mentally for that call-up?
It was that was my second year. I just signed the previous year out of the University of Oklahoma in '85, and spring training, and ended up having a really good spring training, and I was fortunate enough to make the team. But the first outing didn't go as planned. I remember a lot about it. It was in Arlington at the old stadium. That would be 2 stadiums ago, and it was against the Toronto Blue Jays. And I believe I might have not got through the 3rd inning. And it's one of those games where you get banged up a little bit. But I was pretty, as far as mentally, physically, I was ready to go. It was just a day where I was anxious. There's no doubt about that. But I ended up facing them 2 starts later and ended up getting my first win up in Toronto.
So now you were around for the strike, and then also you were around before you retired in 01. You were around for the steroid era. What out of those two, which do you think damaged the game the most, and which do you think strengthened the game?
Well, we had actually during my career, I think I had having a strike and 2 lockouts. We had some work stoppages along the way, but the strike in '94, it was very it's hard to say. I mean, as far as the game itself, I think it damaged the game. There's no doubt about that. I think as far as fan structure, it damaged the game. I mean, there was a lot of people that were upset because you got to remember there was no playoffs in '90, no postseason at all. So a lot of people were very disappointed in that, and you lost a lot of fans, and it was it was going to be hard to get them back, but. Over time, I think that time heals all wounds, and I think that was the situation with baseball. I think a lot of people started coming back, and then my last year, excuse me, was 2001. So that time frame, there was a lot of stuff going on in the game that maybe necessarily wasn't the right thing to do, and some things were, some records would be broken and things like that. But overall, it was something that. I think everybody was excited to once everybody, they started hitting home runs. People started hitting, 40, 50, and then, 60s. I was actually in St. Louis when Mark McGwire broke that record. And that chase that came down to the last few days between Sammy and Mark was incredible. I think it was great for the game as far as getting that interest back into the game, and, it brought some fans.
But did you honestly know... in your heart, do you think those guys were juicing? Did you think they were? I mean, as a player, you saw them, and you, like you said, you were there for it. Do you think, honestly, they were juicing, or do you think that they were just working out, as naturally as they could, or do you think it was something more that they were doing?
Well, I think that, obviously, when you're playing against guys and they're doing things that it takes a lot of strength to do. I mean, you can't sit there and just assume something and say, hey, we thought this guy was doing that guy was doing that. I mean, there's a lot of guys that put a lot of work and between their hitting, working on that craft during the off season. So a lot of times, guys come back and they have better years than they did the previous year. Some guys are younger, they're not really fully mature yet. They get bigger, stronger, and that type of stuff. So I would never, sit there while I was playing and say something that wasn't, unless I really knew for sure. And then after, when you get done playing, you look back and, you find out that obviously what some of the players had come out and said, they were using the stuff.
So now I see this as well. Tell me how this experience was. We just had the Olympics with baseball. You were on the '84 Los Angeles team. What was that experience like in winning a silver medal for Team USA?
It was outstanding. It was the first time that they were using baseball in the Olympics. So we were part of not only that part of the history, just being one of the first ones, but also being in our home country, being in LA. Those are some things that I'll never forget. Like I told somebody earlier this year that we were talking about that opening, being able to be a part of opening ceremonies and walking in was something that I'll never forget. And then we ended up playing in Dodger Stadium, and it didn't end the way we wanted it to. We got a silver medal. I felt like we had. If we could have played maybe best of 3 or best of 5, I think we would have taken care of business.
By the way, I think I know who you're talking about too, because I had him on my podcast as well. I think I know who you're talking about.
As far as
the guy that you talked to about that, I think he was a teammate of yours. Played for the Brewers.
Yeah, this was another. I did a podcast, I think, a couple weeks ago with another guy.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. But I had somebody. I think I had somebody similar that when I saw that, I had to ask because I had somebody that I did earlier on my podcast, like I think it was about a month ago. Don August. Name sound familiar? I think he was on that team with you.
Yes, he was a teammate of mine, huh? Yeah, he had a great curveball. Really good pitcher.
Yeah, he was wicked. But so were you. Come on now. you don't have the stats that you do and not be wicked. Come on now. I saw your stats.
Well, I was fortunate to play this game for 16 years, and there's guys out there that obviously have better numbers than that. But I kind of prided myself in being able to take the ball every 5 days, going out there and leaving it all out there on the mound. I played back in a time where I think I had 5 recorded games of maybe 130 more pitches during the game. So, I mean, and that was something that you didn't think about that. I mean, that was nothing. I mean, I always tell guys kind of jokingly that, I started getting loose at 100 pitches, but, in today's game, that's where they're coming out. Yeah. But it's, times have changed, but yeah, I was very, very blessed and very fortunate to be able to play as long as I did.
And now that you mention that, now that you bring that up, yeah, since you were a part of that, and now the game has changed, what are your thoughts on that? Seeing that pitchers don't pitch complete games anymore like you used to, or throw as many pitches as you do. Doesn't that kind of burn you as a old-time pitcher being in the league? Doesn't that ache you that pitchers don't do that no more, that they're babies?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, for me, like I said, it was kind of like a badge of honor, man. I mean, getting to the 9th inning and being able to throw a complete game was something that, when you walked off the mound, that at the end of the day, you felt like you'd accomplished what you set out to do. I mean, not that you were going to do it every time, but there was a lot of satisfaction, just knowing that you were able to go out there and do that, especially if you had a situation where the bullpen might have been banged up for about 3 days and they needed a rest, and you were able to provide that rest for them, that they could come back the next day or the second day after that. So it's just a different time now. I mean, they're asking these guys, from what I see, except for the guys like, I love Max Scherzer. I love watching him pitch. I think he's an old soul when he goes out there as far as pitching. He likes to go out there and get some length into the game. But now, guys, if they're telling you, hey, we want you to go out there and throw 6 innings, hard as you can for as long as you can, and see what you can do. That's what they're asking of them. And then the bullpens are so strong now that you try to make it that 6-inning game. So times have changed. I don't have any resentment. To what guys are doing now. You got to adapt and adjust as things go on in life.
So, like we talked about, you made your debut with the Texas Rangers. You made 31 starts that year and 86 for them. What do you remember about your rookie year playing and starting those games? You ended up with an 11-9 record, and I believe it's, from what I'm seeing, you had 143 walks and it looks like 140 strikeouts. What do you remember about that rookie year?
It was a total learning process for me, trying to absorb as much as I could, being there. I was drafted in 85, and then I signed in that June of 85. I went to Double-A, and then I ended up making the team the next year, and I really didn't pitch well in Double-A. So I went to an instruction league in West Palm Beach, worked on some things down there, and got invited to big league camp, and really I had a good spring training, but I still had not had a professional win yet, and Bobby Valentine was our manager at the time, and he was going with youth movement. I think we ended up we had 4 pitchers that were rookies, and then we had an outfielder, Petey Cavilla. And then by the time the year was over, I think we ended up having a total of 6 or 7 rookies that year, which is unheard of in today's game. Usually you have 2 come up and, are factors, but these were guys that were, in the rotation, starting in left field. Witt Sr. came out. So, these guys are everyday players, and that's just kind of unheard of. But just trying, like I said, just trying to absorb everything, trying to figure things out. And I was a guy that wasn't really a guy that was going to go out there and, carve guys up as far as throwing strikes. I was a guy that threw it hard, and try to get it in that little white area across that plate. And that's why, I think I led the league in my career. I think I led the league 3 times in walks. So it wasn't something I was real proud of, but it was part of my MO.
I saw that, but hey, it happens. You can't control it.
Literally.
Yeah. During your rookie year, though, did you have any veteran presence that helped you along the way, reach you to where you wanted to be into the game? Did they teach you?
Yeah, earlier when I first got there, we had guys like Charlie Huff was there, Mike Mason. He was a guy that has been around. So you always want to listen. I always felt like listening and just taking that information and trying to use it to my advantage was always something that would help me out. And then after a few years being there, they ended up signing Nolan Ryan, and I was able to play with Nolan for 4 years and just watching him as far as how he went about his everyday walk, what he did prior to, what he did how he warmed up when he got out to the mound, the next day, the workouts and things like that. So you try to take some of that and incorporate into your, into your workout, into your preparation and all that. So I was very fortunate to be able to, play with him and have him as a mentor.
So tell me about this. I'm seeing this as well. On August 2nd of 87, you struck out 4 batters in 1 inning, a feat that didn't get accomplished by another Ranger, by Scott Feldman in 09. How the heck does that happen? I mean,
how does it happen?
Yeah, I don't ever see that hardly ever happen, so that's why I'm kind of confused on how it happens, because I never hardly ever see that.
Yeah, here's what happened was, I struck out, it was against the Orioles, I believe, and I struck out the first 2 guys, and then the next guy, the third out of the inning, it got by the catcher. Mm-hmm. So on a third strike, you can go to first, as long as the base is not occupied, unless there's 2 outs and bases are loaded. So I end up striking out the hitter, and the ball gets by the catcher. Mm-hmm. So technically, that's the 3rd strikeout, but that runner's on first because he wasn't able to secure the out, and he was able to get down there and so he was safe. So the next hitter, I ended up striking out. So that was the 4th hitter of the inning that I struck out, but it only equates to 3 outs, so you could you could leave the field.
God, I feel stupid because I'm a huge baseball fan and I never knew that because you don't see that often.
No, you don't. It doesn't happen. There has to. You have to have a lot of things happen. One, have that opportunity to strike out the side, and 2, the catcher to have the ball go by and have a pass ball, which you're not wanting that anyway as a pitcher, but sometimes it happens.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes it happens. Yeah. So in 1990, it looks like you had the best season of your career. You went 17-10 with a 3.36 ERA. That was the lowest of your career. What do you remember about that year? And did you know that going into the years later that it would eventually help you get into I want to say other teams? Did you want to stay with your original team? And did you think, what I'm trying to say is, do you think that year that you had would have helped you stay with the Rangers that drafted you?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely by far that was my best year of my career. That was a lot of fun that year. And Nolan Ryan and I think we finished 1-2 in strikeouts. There was a lot of really good things that happened for me. And I can tell you what, it didn't start out that great. I was 3-7 to start that year, and then things just kind of turned for the better for me. I want to say probably somewhere in May, mid-May, something like that. And I got on a little bit of a roll. And you hear guys talk about they get in the zone and they get locked in. It was literally like that for about 2 months for me. And, that enabled me to get a long-term deal with the Rangers. And then, things worked out pretty well for me. But, you want it, as a pitcher, you want to try to do that every year. Those are things you're trying to accomplish, obviously. But sometimes whether it's just not there, or it might be something physically, mentally, whatever it is, but that's when you try to get to that point. And guys that are in that point can do that. Those are the elite in the game, for sure.
Now, you were traded alongside Jeff Russell and Ruben Sierra to Oakland. I'm not going to say crosstown rival, but division rival Oakland A's for Jose Canseco. What do you remember about that trade? Who told you were being traded? And did they ever tell you why you were being traded? Was it because you weren't doing good? What was the deal there?
Yeah, I think, the guy that told me was Toby Harrah. He was the intern manager for the Texas Rangers because Bobby Valentine got fired that year.
Okay.
So he got fired, so Toby took over as the manager. And that year my name started circulating as possibly a trade
piece. Right? Okay, gotcha.
And so that was the first time I was going through. I think that was my 7th year in the game. So this is the first time all this is happening. So I went up to Toby, who was a teammate of mine in '86. And I said, hey, man, I said, what's going on? I said, am I going to get traded? He kind of looked at me and said, honestly, he goes, I don't know. But the one thing I can tell you is that, and he played a long time too, is that just remember something. It's always good when your name's being brought up as a possible trade piece. It's when when it's not, you played the game for a while, that's when you got to start to worry if there's interest in you anymore. So it made a lot of sense to me. So we were at home. We were flying to Kansas City, and the deadline was coming up. And I know we were in Kansas City, and I'm thinking, okay, it's not going to happen. You know, all that after talking to Toby, he's saying he really doesn't think so. And then I can't remember what inning it was of that game, but Witt Sr. was playing. I believe he was playing right field or left field. Jeff Russell was in the pen, and I was in the dugout watching the game. I wasn't pitching. And I see Toby come down the dugout, and he goes, hey, I got to talk to you. So I went down there. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh, man. I think and then he told me, he goes, hey, you and Russ and Ruben just got traded to Oakland. I was like, no way. I said, all right. Well, at the time, I believe we might have been in last place or second to last place, and Oakland was in first. So, I mean, within a matter of minutes, I'm going to a first place team, which was really cool about it. The downside was we just started building a home here in Texas. And then, you know, the guys that you played with, it's the only organization I've been with. So there was a lot of mixed emotions. But at the end of the day, you realize that it's a business, and that's part of it. And, you know, like I said, I went from a last place team to a first place team. And I think the other thing you asked was, you know, why. I wasn't really pitching that well probably at the time. You know, but I think Oakland had needed a fifth start or something had happened over there. So I went over there and kind of fit right into that piece that they needed. They got Ruben for Jose, and then they helped the bullpen out by getting Jeff Russell too. So it was a good deal. We ended up losing in the first round, but it was my first time to be able to get some playoff experience and that type of stuff. So it was good. You know, it's part of the game. I mean, you'd like to sit there and say that you could play for one team that's taken that drafted you and all that, you know, for your entire career. I think that's awesome. You know, you think of guys that did that, like Cal Ripken. I mean, there's so many guys. There's lists of guys that were able to go out there. You know, Tony Gwynn was the guy, and I mean, just sit there and hey, this is the team who's drafted me. I'm going to play for them, and I'm going to walk out with the same uniform I came in with. But that, you know, like I said, it's part of the game.
Now, do you think, like you just said, what you heard from that guy, do you think, since you lived it, do you honestly think that in your heart is if you're talked about in trades, that means the team wants you, or if they don't, that means your career is pretty much over? Do you believe in that?
I think teams always are trying to get better. You know, they're always trying to better themselves. And there's guys that, you know, sometimes are untouchable. They don't want to trade that guy no matter what happens. But I think that if you really, and again, that was my 7th year. It wasn't, I mean, I played 16, so it wasn't like it was almost halfway through it. But there's guys that don't play that long.
Right,
and I didn't know that long. But you're thinking at that time, okay, you know, maybe this is going to be better for me, you know, getting out here, because things weren't going real well for me in Texas at that time. So things, you know, like I say, it did work out. I was able to get my first experience in the playoffs and all that, so it worked out good.
So I'm seeing this. Tell me about this game. June 23rd, 1994. Let's see if you remember it, and tell us what was going in through your head when this happened. Do you remember this game I'm talking about?
1994?
Yep. You were with the Oakland A's.
Yeah, that was the day I had a one-hitter.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think to this day, if we would have had replay back then, it probably would have been a perfect game.
Yeah, and I'm saying, do you remember who that umpire was? He's still umpiring to this day.
Gary Severstrom. Yeah.
Yep. Oh God, even back then he was controversial. It seems like.
Yeah, that was a crazy play. I actually got to watch that game this past, when was it? I think in 2020. No, it might have been this winter. MLB was running a bunch of old games. MLB Network. And it happened. They put it on. It came on real early, and somebody recorded it for me. And I ended up turning it on, and my son got to watch it. He got to see me, go out there and pitch and all that. So it was kind of they fast forwarded a lot of it, so it was cool. But yeah, it was really cool to see it. But I honestly believe I did it. That he was out. I remember the play vividly, and like I said, if there was play by, the replay right now. Back then he would have been out.
So is that what you would mainly remember from that? Is your time in Oakland, or do you have another moment that you had in Oakland that you remember?
Well, I think again, you always remember some of your teammates that you played with, some of the guys, and I'll never forget that. I was managed by Tony La Russa at the time.
Good manager. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing was that game actually started me on a little streak because I had a shutout there, they shut out the next game, and shut out the next game. So I had 3 consecutive shutouts, which kind of that kind of was kind of another highlight of my career.
So after your time with the Oakland A's, you signed a 1-year deal with the Marlins. What do you remember about that year that you spent with the Marlins? Because it looks like here you had a 2-7 record and a 3.90 ERA. What do you remember most about that season?
Well, that was my first time. Well, it was coming off the strike, so my contract had expired. I was a free agent. Not only myself, but there was a lot of guys in the game that were free agent, and coming off the strike. And that was the year that they had built a spring training facility down in Homestead, Florida, for Cleveland. But a hurricane came through there and kind of dismantled everything. And so we had that site. Major League Baseball occupied that site for the free agents to come down and work out because we didn't have a team because there was negotiating going on during that winter.
Right.
I got a phone call from Renee Latchman, who was one of my coaches in Oakland, and he had taken the managerial job the year before. This was the second year of the team, and he asked if I would be interested in coming over there. Told me what my situation was and all that. So talked with my agent and my wife, and ended up deciding to go to Miami. And it was the first time in the National League, so I got to swing the bat a little bit, which was fun.
Bet you enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was enjoyable. And then ended up getting traded back to Texas that same year. That's kind of what
I see that. What was that like? Going back to your team that you got drafted for, you played for. Not many players get to say that.
Yeah, I know. It was a fun time, and probably one of the coolest thing is that 2 years later we won a division, and that was the first time. That was in '95, so that was '96. The year later, we ended up winning the division. That was the first time they had been in postseason, so I was able to be a part of that too, which was exciting.
So in that time, like you said, when you went back to Texas, on June 30th of '97, you become the first American League pitcher to hit a home run on that subject that you said you got to hit. Since looks like Ronick Harrison did it in '72. Wow, that's a record that hardly can ever be explained for. It hardly ever happens. What was that like, hitting that home run and then possibly finding out about that record? I don't know. Did you even know about that record going in after you hit that home run?
No, because I was just trying to make contact. That was the first year of interleague play in 1997. So the American League initiated the DH in '72. So no pitchers were really hitting anymore. They were strictly in the National League. That's why there was such a big gap. Mm-hmm. And it was at Dodger Stadium, and I remember I was throwing the ball pretty well that day. It was a good game there. And then first couple of bats, I think the first at bat I might have popped up, and then I hit a line drive. Might have been the second bat. I think it was the second bat. And I remember just the pitcher was, Ishmael Valdez. He was throwing pretty firm velocity. I remember just as he was starting to really maybe just start his mechanic, getting his hands over his head, whatever his movements might have been, I was almost getting ready to start swinging. Just trying to stay ahead of it. And it was a high fastball. I hit it, and all of a sudden, I was looking at it and going around first. I said, I think I'm going to get a double. And then hard as I could, which wasn't that fast. I see the umpire when I get to second base giving me the home run sign, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" So I ended up going around the bases, and I was pretty excited. I had a lot of adrenaline flowing, but I remember the one thing I started thinking about was I played with a guy, Chris Hammond, in Florida. Miami. When it was the Marlins then, Miami Marlins.
Right.
He started the game. He was with. He pitched a lot of his time was in Cincinnati when we played together with the Marlins. He had started the game, and we ended up just pounding this team early. It was like 10-0, whatever. And I think in the fourth inning or something, he came up and hit a grand slam. So he hits a grand slam. We're pounding this team. He did not get out of the fifth inning because I think he was thinking about the home run. The focus can leave.
Yeah, right. And exactly.
I remember that. I just said, you know what? You got to stay within yourself and continue to go out there and just approach the game as you were as pitching. Forget about what just happened. So I used that, and I think I ended up going 7 or 8 that day, and we ended up getting a win. I hit a home run, and it was a pretty exciting game.
Did you know that ball was actually in the Hall of Fame, according to this?
Yeah, they took it. The bat that I used was Billy Ripken's bat, because I didn't have my own models, so I just grabbed his bat and was swinging
Billy
it.
Ripken.
So they took the bat and the ball, I think, yeah.
Wow, that's great, though. Yeah, you got a bat that you didn't even use, also in the Hall of Fame. You got the ball in the Hall of Fame. I mean, and knowing that with your stats, who knows? You else could be going in the Hall of Fame with that. So that could be your claim of fame alongside. So there you go, right? It's a win-win.
Yeah. No.
But that's crazy. That's awesome. So after that, you go to the Cardinals for a brief time. Like you said, you played with Mark McGwire. You witnessed that home run chase for a little bit before going to the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. What was your time like in the Cardinals, and what was it like pitching on the hard turf of Busch Stadium? Because I know that had to suck playing on that turf.
Well, when I was there, they had already transformed it over to grass.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. So it was.
I forget what year that was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly when they officially did that, but it was grass then. But yeah, it was really. At the time, I was with the Rangers, and they designated me for assignment. And I told you earlier, I played with Tony La Russa in Oakland, so Tony was managing at the Cardinals at that time. They had called and asked if I was healthy. Was there anything physically wrong? I said no. He said, well, we're thinking about maybe trying to get you over here, help us out. So I said, great, that'd be great. And I think it was probably 2 days later, they ended up telling me I was going to St. Louis. So I went over there, and to be able to witness, what was going on with Mark and all that was just fantastic. The team wasn't playing that well, but that was, the highlight of the year. I mean, for me, just being able to watch him do that. I had played with him in Oakland and previously on that '84 Olympic team, so got to know him a little bit prior to that, and it was really a lot of fun.
So then after that, like I said, you go to the Devil Rays. What do you remember about playing here? Because I'm a local guy here, as you know of here, not even 30 minutes away from the Trop. What was it like pitching in the Trop? Because a lot of people say it's a dump, they hate it. This is people out of state that don't really come here. A lot of people say they hate it. What was your take on pitching in the Trop since you pitched here? What was it like?
I honestly, it didn't really bother me as far as the dimensions and the stadium itself. I mean, I felt like, at times, with the turf, it was a little bit rough because, some of those balls would get through the middle of the infield and those type of things, which always is going to happen on turf. I prefer grass, but overall, it wasn't, it wasn't something that I thought it was, a hindrance as far as pitching. The only thing is, we didn't play that well. I mean, and just the draw wasn't there. I remember in September, you could actually hear the fans at the stands talking rather than the players on the bench. You could literally hear that. But it was. I enjoyed my time there. I really did. I got to play for Larry Rothschild, which I really enjoyed, and and Rick Williamson, the pitching coach, played with a lot of great guys. Norm Charlton, Paul Serrano, Fred McGriff, Bogsy. So it was a good group of guys.
Now, let me ask you. Yeah, you had basically a Hall of Fame lineup. Why do you think you guys couldn't get the pitching to help you get to the postseason? What do you think the problem was? Was it commotion in the locker room? No leadership? What was the deal? Like, why couldn't you guys make it in the postseason?
Well, it's probably because of the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Orioles. They were just so much. They had all the time.
That's true.
They were stacked. And again, I think, what was that? That was in '99. So
yeah, 99.
What was that? The third year of the Rays, or the
second?
Second year of the Rays. But I mean, there's still a lot of that newness and that type of stuff. I think that overall there was some really good talent on that team. But again, when you're in a division like that and it's your second year, it's tough to compete with them big boys.
Were you there for Boggs' infamous home run?
Yeah, I actually started that game.
There you go.
And it wasn't a good game for me. I think I don't know if I lasted 3 innings or whatever, but I ended up coming back after I got knocked out and sitting on the bench and watched it.
Yeah, because now you know what they did to that seat. They marked it as a special seat, yellow. It's now yellow. Yep, right out there. Let's see, where was it? Out there in right field.
More right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I saw that game on TV. I was so happy for him because I grew up watching him.
Yeah.
And it just sucked to see that they could never do anything for the longest time because they didn't have pitching. And like you said, you had the Orioles, you had the Yankees, and you had Boston, who are all dominating still.
Yeah.
But
Toronto wasn't bad either.
Exactly. And you just didn't have the pitching back then. Yeah. It was hard. But hey, like you said, it's baseball and it happens. It's like the divisions now. Look at the AL East now.
Right. Yeah.
It's basically a 4-team race.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of good baseball.
Yeah. So seeing how that you did spend your time with before I get to your last team with the Diamondbacks. I know you played for Cleveland there, but I wanted to get into with the Diamondbacks your final year when you won that world title. But I want to ask you first, though. Currently, since you spent the most time with the Rangers, what do the Rangers need to do to get back to their winning days? That they were consecutively making it to the playoffs, making it to the divisional round, championship round. What do they need to do to get back to that plateau? Because right now they're in total rebuild.
Right, yeah, I think that, and especially when you start looking in that division, how well Houston's playing. You're seeing Seattle starting to improve right now. They're playing well. I think the Angels aren't that far off. But for me, I think the Rangers have really focused on the draft. The last couple of years, they've really hit on the draft. And this past year, picking up Jack Leiter, I think is going to help them out tremendously. But they're going through that rebuild, like you said. So I think it's going to have to take a little bit of everything, right? You're going to have to get those cornerstones that come into the organization, that they're going to be guys that are going to be there for a while, and then you're going to have to work on that pitching staff. And I think once they figure that out, but I do think they have pieces in place. I mean, they do have some good young talent. And, it's just going to take a few years to get them. But unfortunately, like I said, when you got, Houston and Seattle, I think, like I said, the Angels are probably going to be getting better. They got two of the best players in the world over there.
Yeah.
Shohei and
Shohei and Trout, yeah. Bro, can't forget about Rendon either.
Yeah, he's just got to stay healthy, I think. That's probably the biggest thing.
Oh, yeah, by far. So yeah, let's now get to your infamous World Series year, your final year with the Arizona Diamondbacks. 3 years in existence. Nobody knew how good you guys were going to be, or even win the World Series for that matter. Take us through that year, being underdogs. Nobody knew that you guys were going to win the World Series. Take us through that whole year, and then that infamous Mariano blowing the save to you guys winning it. What was that whole experience like?
Well, for me, I went in there as a non-roster. I was invited into camp, and I had to make the team out of spring training, and that was something that I did. And my first start, I ended up tearing my ligament in my forearm. So that's the infamous Tommy John surgery.
Right.
So being where I was in my career, I was 36. I was going to turn 37 that year. I felt like the surgery was wasn't even a thought. I felt like I was going to try to rehab and come back, because if I had the surgery, I'd miss the entire season. And when I was in spring training, that group of guys that we had in the locker room you could tell it was going to be something special. Schilling, Johnson, Matty Williams, Mark Grace, Luis Gonzalez, Tony Womack, Reggie Sanders, Damian Miller. I mean, it was a team, Steve Finley. It was a team that just had a bunch of great players, but the guys that loved to play the game. And you could sit there and go, you know what, if this happens, man, this team right here is special. I mean, I was on some playoff teams in the past. I obviously watched every year of the World Series and knew what it took to get there as far as the talent level and that. And this team was special. So I was very excited to be there, but then making the team, I was even excited more. But the disappointment was obviously having the injury. But I ended up coming back. I came back in the first, I think it was maybe the first week in August. But I'm going to the games. I'm not traveling on the road. I'm doing my rehab, trying to get it right. Doing all these different things that I've never experienced before, but just trying to strengthen that area, and then my shoulder started getting messed up, and I had to get shots. I didn't think I was going to make it through. So I get back in August, and coming out of the pen, things are going pretty good, and the team's doing well. But just watching the team play, you're saying, oh man, especially when you had Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling going out there one, and that was, and it seemed like the mentality that they had was that one was going to go out and set the bar and see if the other one could top it the next day. And sure enough, he would go out and, Randy would go out, pitch 7 innings, strike out 10, give up 1 run. Kurt go out the next day, pitch 8 innings, strike out 9, give up and then it was a constant competition, which was great for the team, because these guys were, they were going out there, and then everybody else had to step the game up. But coming, once I got back being a part of it, now I really felt like I was, with the team. I mean, you're sitting there, you're cheering them on, doing everything you can to help them win. It just didn't feel the same. So I get back, and then I made a few starts in September, and the team, we ended up clinching in Milwaukee. I remember that. And just going forward, you started thinking about the teams that were in it and what it was going to take. And, on the other side, you got the Yankees. And that was something that, you got to get through the National League first.
Right. But you had powerhouses to go through.
Yeah, St. Louis, and then Atlanta, for sure. I mean, those are two of the top teams. And then one of the things that, that we just celebrated the 20th anniversary of the 9/11. That was part of something that we had to go through too. When that happened, season shut, came back, and it ended up being us and the Yankees.
Right.
And we went into New York with a 2-0 lead. After beating St. Louis, I think that came down to the 5th game. That was a best of 5. That came down to the 5th game, and then the Braves, I think we ended up beating them in 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And then going to New York, we got in there. I want to say we got into New York like at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. The second game, because right after the game you leave and you fly to the destination you're going. So we had a workout at 7 at Yankee Stadium, and then voluntary, you could go down to ground zero if you wanted to kind of see if there was something that we could do, help, whatever as a team. So I think everybody on the team, the coach and staff, went down there. And then we walked around and just saw what was going on, and we went down into the war room area where you had the fire department, police department, first responders, all those. And Kurt Schilling spoke on behalf of our team to the group that was there, and it was unbelievable, just what he had to say and his thoughts and what was going on. So that was a piece that, for me was really, I think everybody had it, in the back of their minds when you went out there. And, that was my 16th year. And I've been going to New York for 16 years, and I've never seen that city like that. It was just...
Yeah, it was rumbling, I bet.
It it was unbelievable. And then the way the games went, the way that the games finished. I mean, we're up 2-0. We're thinking on the plane we're going to beat the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, sweep them. I mean, literally, that was the thought process of the team.
Right.
And so we go in there and we lose the first game in extra innings. The next game, it was like every single game was the same exact script. You couldn't have said it any differently. I mean, we got up early, they came back, and then they ended up beating us late. And then we go back, flip-flop, we're going back to Arizona.
Yeah, it was a crazy series.
Yeah, crazy. Down 3-2. Yeah, we're going back 3-2, and all of a sudden, now it's, game 6. We got Randy going, and, I'm feeling pretty good about it, to be honest with you. And he went out there and he was just dynamite. The offense just came alive. And then the next night was, one of the best pitching matchups I ever was where I was present to be there. I mean, and showing against Clemens. And the way it ended, obviously, the outcome was great for us.
Now, your strong suit for that team was obviously offense and the starting pitching. Nobody gave any credit to your bullpen, which you had Brian Anderson, Eric Sable, guys like that, like guys that weren't even they were under radar. Nobody really knew about them or were even questioning them. Do you think that ultimately ended up being the strength? Your bullpen was the one who ended up mainly helping you, if I remember, throughout that whole postseason. I watched that whole World Series up in that whole postseason when you guys went up against the powerhouses in the NL of the Cardinals and the Braves. Do you think the strong suit ended up being your bullpen?
I think so. I think without a doubt. I mean, Greg Swindell is another piece down there, and then you got to remember Young Kim.
Young. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, forgot about him.
And he went out there in the St. Louis series and Braves. He was dominant. I mean, they had no chance. And the only thing that happened was the Yankee series, those couple games in New York, they got them. And I think that affected them, a little bit. And so we had to dance around some situations when we got back. But like I say, it worked out well. But yeah, without a doubt, those guys were tremendous. And that's what happens. Usually when you get to September, teams that are able to, that pitching is so key. I mean, going down that stretch, if you can get the starters and the bullpen to come together, you're going to have a really good chance.
Without a doubt. So take us through that final at bat with Luis Gonzalez going against the greatest closer of all time. You were in the dugout, obviously. Take us through that. What was going through your head when he hit that ball? Did you think it was going to be caught, or did you think it was going to be caught, or did you think it actually gone over that Jeter's head?
Well, I was actually in the bullpen. So I was in the bullpen because I pitched in Game 6, so I was back up there at 7. So I was in the bullpen, and Greg Swindell and I were watching the game, and we're just watching, and all of a sudden, all these, we end up getting that little rally going there, and now it's tied up. And Luis had an unbelievable year that year. He had an unbelievable year.
Yes, he did.
He home runs or whatever it was, and he won the home run All-Star game.
Yep.
He won that.
Yep.
A fantastic year. Mariano Rivera had a great year too, as always.
Yes, he did.
Things where I think just the way things had happened there, the bunt that got the bunt that was down, and he threw a second and threw it away from Jeter. I mean, there was just some little things that were happening, and you could kind of see momentum was on our side. Because do you think about it, he was coming in the game. It was pretty much, I think everybody in the stadium said, Rivera's coming in this game.
Yes, he did.
Going to finish 2-1. But, we just had him. Tony Womack got us going. And then all of a sudden, just little things started to happen. And now you're in the bullpen going, okay, as soon as Tony got the hit, I think everybody said, we got a shot. And then you start watching it, and then all of a sudden, we end up get the tying run across, and then Luis comes up, and you're thinking, okay, he's had a great year, man. Let's just see maybe he can do something. But to see what happened, I mean, think about it. Like I said, we had some momentum, some good things happening to us in that inning. They brought the infield in. They keep if Jeter stays where he's at, he probably takes 2 steps back, makes that catch, and then who knows what happens.
That's right.
But it was one of those things where it just everything seemed to really go our way that time, and to go to the 7 games, the last inning. I mean, just it was something that obviously I'll never forget, and it was something that I was just really happy and proud that I could be a part of.
Yeah, because you guys were definitely the underdogs by far. Everybody had the Yankees winning that, especially with after 9/11, what happened with them. They were the sentimental favorites.
Sure, no doubt. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
So that was awesome that you guys actually took them down. Like I didn't care less because honestly I didn't like the Yankees. I never did growing up because I was tired of seeing them always in the World Series.
Yes.
But
yeah, they were.
Yeah. So I was actually happy you guys beat them because they kicked my Padres' ass, and they swept them. I was upset about that.
That's right.
And I believe that was their first World Series I saw them in before they went back to back to back. I think it was like 3 World Series in a row for them or something. And
yes.
You beat them in the 3rd one. I was so happy. Because the year later,
they were both. That's for sure.
Yeah, because the year later in 01, they didn't make it back. So I was happy on that too. Yeah, I was so glad you guys beat them, but that was awesome. So before we cut, I got a couple more questions I'd like to ask you about today's game. The analytics part. Do you like how the game has evolved into analytics compared to when you played? I kind of think you're going to the answer know this, but I want your reply. I think you kind of knew about it because I think Larusa, from what I hear, was the first one to pretty much do this. What is your take on that?
Well, I think that, I'm more of a traditionalist. I would say I like the game the way it was being played. I mean, there's some things that they're doing now, I think that, are definitely going to help you. I mean, when you're getting information, anytime you can get information you're going to be able to utilize and take it out there and use it as an advantage, sure, why not? But I think the thing is that you want that information, and sometimes you've got to be able to have somebody be able to teach that person how to use it. And whether it's, whether they're talking about their launch angle or whatever it is, with some of the spin rate and things like that. But all that stuff was there back when we were playing. It just wasn't brought to the attention of players, into the media, into the fans as much as it is right now. I mean, that's all people talk about.
Right.
In wanting to change certain things. I mean, there were shifts back then. There was, guys would shift, if there was a big pull hitter or a left-handed pull hitter, that second baseman would move over. Not to the extent of what they're doing now with some of the guys. I mean, second baseman's almost playing a rover spot in right field. But, I mean, there was things that were done like that. But I think the game, it has evolved, and I think that, there's some good things that come out of that stuff. But I still like watching that pitcher go out there. And, I mean, 2-1, 1-0 game. I like that stuff. I mean, I don't think
I'm with you on that. I like that.
A lot of people want to see the home runs and things like that, but I like to be able to watch a pitcher go out and just, use his craft to go out and navigate his way through a ball game. And now it's a little bit different, but I think that like I say, when I came into the game and how I played it and what we did, it's obviously different than now, but I still love watching the game of baseball, and what these guys can do right now in the game is pretty special.
Now, I gotta ask you, is there a team that you see nowadays that reminds you of your 01 championship team, the Diamondbacks?
Well, I look at the Dodgers. They've got a team that just looks like they're always having a good time playing. Obviously when you're talented and you're winning, that winning cures everything, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. But they got guys that go out and play the game pretty hard, and, play it the way. I think the Yankees are always going to have that because of who the Yankees are. There's a lot of tradition over there. You think about the guys that played back in with Mickey Mantle and I mean, just that whole group of guys back then. And then you look at where you think of Matting, you think of just some of the guys that I played against when the Yankees were there, but then Jeter and that group too. It's just, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of guys that went out. They played the game the right way. So that's going to be a team I think that always sticks out as far as playing.
What about underdog? What about underdog wise? Do you see a team out there like what you guys were in 01?
Oh, for this year?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say the Giants because they've already won 100 games. I mean, what they've done so far has been incredible. I mean, everybody kept writing them off and saying,
"Oh yeah, they did."
But, they'll be fading at the All-Star break, and then all of a sudden, the trade deadline, and then all of a sudden it's September, and you look up and they're still in first place. And I mean, I thought the Dodgers when they picked up Scherzer and Trey Turner,
yeah,
it just doesn't stop. It just keeps getting better and better. But the Giants are one of the surprising teams. I mean, if you can still call them that. But I don't know. I mean, maybe one of these wild card teams gets hot, at the right time. I mean, look what the Cardinals have done. They won again today. I think what's that, 16 in a row?
16 in a row for them. Yep.
It's a dangerous team. You really don't want to be playing them right now because they've got a lot of momentum. They believe they're playing probably at the highest level they can play, and it's the right time to be doing that. What
about the Rays?
Yeah, they're always. I mean, I think with their pitching, they're going to give everybody trouble. I mean, offensively, they do things that kind of surprise you sometimes. They got this young kid up there now, Franco. He's a special player. But you add him with the veterans, and they seem to have that right chemistry. Cash pushes a lot of the right buttons. And always the bullpen's going to be nasty. So they're always a threat.
And what about team that was a major disappointment this year? I can already go with one.
You got the shirt on. I mean, today they lost again, and what's that? They're 500, right? I mean, I would have never thought that if we go back to the All-Star break that time. You got to tell me the Padres would be a 500 team? I would have bet you whatever you wanted. No way. Yeah.
Surely there's got to be another team, but I have to agree with you on that. It's the Padres, but yeah, there's got to be another team though that you would think. What would you think though? I know there's definitely the Padres for sure. But there's got to be another team. I know. There's definitely another disappointment.
I don't know. I mean, I think if the Yankees don't get in, that's going to be a huge disappointment.
What about the Twins?
Well, yeah, good point. Yeah, the Twins, because I mean, the last couple of years, I think that they've gotten to the playoffs, division championship too. Yeah, that's a good one. But that thing to me, I think it's not as bad. It's not as much as this one because it happened so quick, so early, right?
Right, true. I mean, good point.
We all knew when we were watching that by the end of, the middle of May, it looked like they had no chance. Where the Padres, they were rolling along, they were playing well, the Yankees again. I think the Yankees, I mean, they built that team. They built them, if you don't win a world championship, I've just said many a times that it's a disappointing year for the New York Yankees.
Yeah, by far. So now I gotta ask you as well. Who do you think? I know it's still early. I know it's the end of the season. We haven't had the postseason yet. What team do you see winning the World Series? How many games? And do you see home field advantage now coming back into play with the fans being in stands?
Yeah, I think. I'd have to say, right now, the way it looks, I know San Francisco's had that year and they're unbelievable, but, the Dodgers to me are the defending world champions. It seemed like when you had that team that won it and it got better, and I look around the league and I see teams that have improved or gotten to a point where, nobody expected the Giants, but I mean, the Rays, you look at what they did. I actually think that team might be better than last year's team. It seems like they're just playing really well. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, but I would just throw it out there, maybe the Dodgers in 6. I don't know. I think that's what everybody would say if they were sitting here. six games.
And do you think home field advantage will now come into play?
Yes. Without a doubt. I think having the fans back are it's what just from listening to players talk, and I've been to a few games myself this year, and it feels like baseball again. That guys are out there, and coming up in the 8th inning, 9th inning in crucial situations. I think that extra fan base, the adrenaline from the fans, the cheering, the noise, can get a guy to maybe do something sometimes that not necessarily when it's quiet and nobody's there.
Yeah, that had to be disappointing for the players. I couldn't imagine. Just like you, if you played to this day, you couldn't imagine playing in an empty stadium.
No, it had to be rough. I mean, I went to game 5 last year because it was over here in Texas, in Arlington, of the Dodgers and the Rays, and there was still a good, 15,000, whatever they let in there, but still, it was loud. It was, everybody was giving it all what they had, but it just wasn't the same to a packed house.
Right. I agree. So a couple more questions. With your stats, seeing your stats, in your heart, do you believe you are a Hall of Famer? Do you think you will be considered one day?
No, I don't. I mean, the one thing I can tell you is that I'm a realist, and I played the game. Like I told you, I was something I was really proud of. I took the ball every 5 days. I went around. I know what a Hall of Fame guy looks like as far as their numbers and those type of things, but no, I was, one of the things I was close on was, I think I was, 60, 70 strikeouts away from 2,000. 150 would have been a nice number for wins. I was a few light of that, but overall, I mean, I'm really proud of what I accomplished over 16 years. Being able to play this game at a high level and doing the things I was able to do, and excuse me, win a world championship with the Diamondbacks. I mean, it was a fantastic way to finish the job.
So I know you're not in that mindset of a voter, but what do you think goes into the voting process of being a Hall of Famer? What do you think is the requirements nowadays? Because it seems like it changes from year to year. Yeah,
Byron, I think that when you go back to when I came in and all that type of stuff. I mean, you looked at it. I mean, if a guy hit 3,000, he had 3,000 hits, pretty much a lock. 500 home runs was a lock.
That's right.
Career 300 batting average is pretty much a lock. I mean, over at least a 10-year period, right?
Yeah.
Pitching 300 wins, it was a no-brainer. Save-wise, anywhere from probably 300 to 400, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
So those kind of were the numbers that I think guys would look at and see the player and say, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. You start looking at, guys that obviously you got 2,850 hits and, you're getting in at some point. You got 400, except for Freddie McGriff, he should be in. That's the one.
He should.
Without a doubt, that's a travesty that he's not in there. But now, they're looking at, OPS, on-base plus slugging, things like that, the WAR, all these different things that they look at it differently. I don't think you're going to have numbers like you did back then. Obviously, the strikeouts are going to be a tough thing to attain, even though Max Scherzer and there's a couple other guys out there that are still getting it done. But, getting to that 3,000 is harder now because guys aren't going as long into the game. The save situation, sometimes there really hasn't been that dominant guy, since Mariano and Hoffman and those type of guys. You don't know what the criteria, if they're going to shorten that as far as, now you need this amount, rather, because, Mariano was 600, Trevor was 600, whatever.
Yep.
Crazy numbers. But I think, the hitting is going to be a little bit different. Pitching wise, like I said, you're not going to have to get 300 wins. They're going to look at the body of work and how your WAR shaped out, and were you on championship teams. I think that comes into play. So I don't know. I think the players, when they're playing against guys and you talk to them and you've seen a guy long enough where he's played 7 or 8 years, you might say that dude's going to be a Hall of Famer, or this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think the players have a pretty good feel of who is going to be, being inducted into that Hall of Fame.
And lastly, it's a 2-part question. Who did you dominate the most in your career, and who gave you the most fits in your career?
As far as a team or a player?
Player.
A player, without a doubt, it's so easy to answer that, Jim Thome. I think I gave up his, his 300th home run, his 400th home run, it seemed like the dude, I threw the kitchen sink at him. I mean, he was just one of those guys I could not really get out, and he had my number. And it was one of those things where it just, I mean, I tried to start him different sequences, it didn't matter. It was like he was in me. He had me, you know. But a guy that I had a lot of success against, but I don't know if maybe 10 at bats, I don't know, but it was Bo Jackson. I loved playing against Bo. I really enjoyed facing the right-handed power guy, and occasionally the left-handed power guys. My game matched up pretty good with those guys. So, you know, it was one of those deals where they would maybe get me or I would get them, but I know Bo. But, I mean, I faced so many great hitters, Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, Wade Boggs, Dave Winfield,
Cal Ripken.
Yeah, I mean, just so many good players. I mean,
Tony Gwynn.
So I got to face Tony a few times. Yes, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a who's who of who you put. Well, now what about team wise?
I think that my best numbers are against the Red Sox.
Oh, really? That's a shocker.
I grew up. I'm from there, so I would be able to go back and pitch in front of family and friends, and I think that was kind of something that I really enjoyed.
Adrenaline rush.
Yes, yeah, it was, but probably. I think Cleveland would have to be in there along with Tomey. It wasn't a very friendly team to me. They usually they gave me a rough time.
Oh, they had a powerhouse team.
Yeah,
Lofton, Ramirez.
Yeah, they were.
Bell.
Yeah, they had serious. Baerga.
Baerga. Yeah, I mean that team was stacked. So I can see why they gave you the most fits.
Yeah.
But then again, I can see I'm still shocked, even though it is your hometown. I'm still shocked about the Red Sox, as they had a dominating lineup. Like you said, we talked about it.
Yeah, they were solid. I mean, so I was facing them from '86 to 2000, and I spent that 1 year in the National League. So a lot of those teams, a lot of those lineups were solid. But you know, like I said, being back there in Fenway, there was something about it. I really felt comfortable pitching there. Did you like pitching with that, knowing that you had that? It's kind of like a hitter's ballpark with the green monster in short field. I'm not lying to you. When you looked over your shoulder, it seemed like it was right there. You know, it was one of those deals. But yeah, I think that you know, like I said, just going back there and wanting to perform well, where you grew up and you had family and friends in the stands, that really helped. That really helped me out as far as getting motivated. Well, is that honestly kind of a advantage to the pitcher, though, knowing that thing's so high? I'm kind of I don't know, I'm like half and half. Well, I think as a hitters love it, right? But I mean, because you can just play pepper off the wall, right? But there's balls that have been hit there that are going out probably in 20 other ballparks, 25 other ballparks, and then there's balls that are hit there that are outs. Well, vice versa, flip it around. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's balls that are hit there that are outs that are being caught, and in home runs in other ballparks, and then the other way around. So I mean, I think it kind of works out both ways, especially when you hit the ball to left center. Yeah, to me, that and Great American Ballpark. I know you didn't have a chance to pitch there, but I'm hearing that ballpark is also another hitters friendly as well because of the water. It's literally right on the water, right there, and like from I think it's left. It's left field and right. Hitters love it because it's like so short, and the wind, the air or something right there on the river. It's like, did you ever have a ballpark that you hated to pitch in because of that factor? Probably the one that I would go into and go, man, I just don't like this, is the old Orioles Stadium. Not sure what they used to call it before Camden Yards. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it. Yes. That one there was the one where I really not a big fan of. Yeah. I know. I can't. Damn, what is that name? I can't think of it. I remember seeing videos of it. I know it was before my time, but I remember videos of it. Now, what about stadium you liked? That was a pitcher's paradise. Oakland. I love playing there because it pitching there because of the foul grounds. It had so much foul territory there that a lot of times balls that were hit usually in the stands at probably 29 other ballparks. But in Oakland, they were making a play on it. The first baseman, third baseman, shortstop going over, whichever it may be. But that was a great ballpark to play pitch.
I would have thought for sure you would have said at least Qualcomm in San Diego or Chase Field as a pitchers, because those dimensions are pretty big. Were pretty big.
Yeah, those are good. I mean, the distance, but I think just like I said, I mean, you're getting an easy out sometimes. You might get two outs out of a game, maybe three, that not necessarily would have happened without the foul ground. So I like that. And then at nighttime, the ball really didn't carry that well there at Oakland.
That's true too. But hey, I'm going to end it. It was awesome. I thank you again. Me and the wife, thank you for sending that to our son. We appreciate it. I'll definitely stay in touch. I got your number. I'll text you here and there.
Okay.
I'd like to have you on as many times as you want to come on.
Alrighty.
So
sounds good.
It was fun. I'll send it to you if you want. After we get off here, I'll send it to you so you can listen to it. But yeah, it was fun. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
You bet, Brian. Take care of yourself. Have a good night.
Yeah, same to you. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, bye.
Bye.
So that concludes episode 47 with former Major League pitcher Bobby Witt Sr. And hopefully someday I have his kid on. Who knows? We will see. But it was great having a good conversation with him. And couldn't thank him enough for giving our kid a birthday shout out. So you all be safe. Have a good night.